Originally today was going to be a Kuma related video talking about how our perceptions of him have changed because of his backstory, but it's not done yet. If I was a betting person, I'd say it'll probably be done next chapter. So instead, I decided to make this video. And I'm making this one because I was inspired because of two things. One, God Valley, and two, something that Akainu said in the recent episode. He talked about this being a hell of an age for him to become the Fleet Admiral. And that had me thinking, would it be really that much of a difference if he was in Roger's era? So today I want to talk about that. But if you guys enjoy regular anime content, make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you guys never miss out on a new video. With that in mind, it's Potential Unleashed, and let's see whether or not these Straw Hats could have survived in Roger's era. It's really hard to gauge how strong Roger's era was. We know very little about the individuals that were involved in that era because we know very little about that era in general. Now, after seeing a little bit of a taste of what happened at God Valley, I really hope that we could either get a movie, a spin-off manga, a spin-off anime, something along those lines about everything that took place during Roger's era. There also could have been different pirates that Roger fought or interacted with that are decently strong that we don't know about. There's also different systems and different factions that are implemented that may not have been back then. For example, those include warlords, seraphims, revolutionaries. Since they weren't there back then, what were the equivalents like that in Roger's era? And if they did have any, how strong were they? We just don't know. Another thing that we have to consider is the Straw Hat strength. The version we see right now is not the same version that we can imagine being in that old era. What do I mean by that? Well, they're not completely the same, and let me explain. A lot of times when we compare characters from the old age, we use the old ages, their characters in their prime, and we compare characters to them now, which isn't something exclusive to the Straw Hats. An example of this is Shanks and Roger. A lot of people have made the comparison of Roger and Shanks based off of the Attack Divine Departure, and I've done that as well. But it's hard to say whether or not Shanks at this current part of the story is in his prime, and that's because One Piece characters, their peaks, kind of all over the place. So instead of doing that, we have to use characters when they're both at their peaks, when they're both at their primes, in order to get a fair analysis. So for the Straw Hats, even though they're strong right now, even though Luffy is now considered a Yonko after defeating Kaido, even though now the crew is considered a Yonko crew, Luffy still has room to grow. Zoro, he isn't the world's strongest swordsman yet. Sanji could potentially get Black Flames and other types of hockey, and the Straw Hats, not all of them have hockey, and we don't know if they'll ever get that at some point in the series. So the version of the Straw Hats we'd have to use in order to answer this hypothetical question that I posed, it would have to be when they're close to the series being over. Even though I am a firm believer that the Straw Hats could do decent in Roger's era, they probably would not be one of the top crews necessarily like they are now. This might be a touchy subject and a lot of people might get mad, but I'm asking the question because I think it's necessary, whether or not if we as a community might be overrating that era. Because like I mentioned, these factions did not exist. Some of the warlords, we haven't even seen their full strength yet. Some have hidden potential and have not hit their peak. The seraphims, we know how broken the Lunarians are, and that's not to say that Roger or Whitebeard or anybody else in that time period had never interacted with one, but since they are rare and close to extinction, the likelihood of them interacting with one is slim to none. I also believe because these individuals have such high status, because they're considered as legends, we hold them to a higher standard. Are they really that much stronger than people in the current generation? Are they that much stronger than people like Mihawk, like Shanks? And if they are, by how much? I'm also a believer that people need to realize that a trend that happens in anime is comparing the old generation to the new one. How it works is the old generation, they are the pinnacle of strength. They're seen as the strongest, so that's the standard that needs to be met. The middle generation are strong, but they serve more as stand-ins until the new generation is ready. Lastly, the new generation, they're the prodigies that catch up to the old generation at an alarming rate, and then in the end surpasses them. This isn't just a One Piece thing. I'd say this is probably you could use this for multiple anime, probably Naruto, Bleach, etc. Now it's not one-to-one. Some are exclusive, obviously those that don't necessarily have power systems, but this is something that we do need to take into account because it's fairly frequent. The reason why I believe we hold Roger's era to such a high standard is because there are so many individuals that peaked in that era that are still involved in the story today. And I can't blame people for thinking that. The way that we've seen these different individuals act in their old age is so impressive. Whitebeard, Rayleigh, Garp, especially what he did at Hachinosu, you could see why they have their titles: the hero, the Dark King, the world's strongest man. Where it makes us ask this question: if they were to do this at this age, when they're old, when they're sick, when they're wounded, how strong were they in their primes? I think seeing this piques a lot of people's curiosity, and this is where the headcanon starts and people start power scaling them, whether it's either too high or too low, and I don't blame them. I talked about these Straw Hats not hitting their peak yet, and you could say the same thing about certain individuals during this era. I looked back at the panel that we got during the God Valley incident, looking at the Rocks Pirates. When did all of them hit their peak? Primebeard, Kaido, and Big Mom, since we've seen them more in this story. What about Garland? There's Shiki, there's Rocks. How strong were they? Then you look at the Holy Knights. Are these in the current story the same individuals that were there 38 years ago? How much stronger were these individuals in the past compared to now? And you could say the same thing vice versa. Are they weaker in the current story than they were in the past? So the question is, could the Straw Hats survive in Roger's era? If you're referring to the ones that are on Egghead Island right now, I'd say yeah, they just definitely would not be as dominant. But if you were to look at them in their prime, I think they could definitely raise hell during that era. Who would be the most dominant? I'm not sure, because there's not going to be any MC or main cast plot armor. And like I mentioned before, it's really hard to gauge how strong these individuals are. With all the changes that have gone throughout the series and, between eras, it's really hard to gauge and say who would be the most dominant. But I will say, if the Straw Hats were in that era, the fight for the Pirate King and the Marines trying to stop them, oh, it would be a scary thing. But let me know how you guys feel about the Straw Hats in Roger's era and eras in general. What do you think is the strongest, the weakest, and how do you guys try your best and compare the two? But thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you guys never miss out on a new video. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. It's on the screen in the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to unleash your potential.